You passed your luck check. It's
The No Class Podcast.
with your hosts, Eddie
And Matt.
All right, that about wraps up the show for today.
Exactly.
Thank you for tuning in.
Good to hear from y'all, you know.
So what have you been up to lately, Matt?
About 6'1", 6'2", depends on, you know, the day of the week, I guess. No, I just got back from Dallas, and boy, are my arms tired.
Well, I heard you haven't been feeling good lately.
I've been a little under the weather, which is always a good time for us to hang out.
Yeah. Well, you know, I haven't slept for 10 days
10 days.
because that would be too long.
Exactly.
See, there you go. Now you get to do one for the video cast.
Ah, you're killing
Shaking
me,
his head in disappointment and disgrace.
All right.
I'm still getting used to your smooth scalp here.
I hear you. I hear you. Who loves you, baby?
For anyone that's over 55 that can get that reference.
Yeah, I said that at work, and all the 20 and 30-somethings were like, huh? I'm like, ugh.
Every time he makes a Kojak reference, take your shot of Geritol.
Telly Savalas. Anyway, too funny.
Don't forget to follow up with your proctologist because it's time for that exam.
Yeah, if you got that reference, you need to go have your prostate checked, especially the ladies.
Well, you know what we always start this with is the long con.
The longest of cons.
I have nothing to say about long con November. What about you?
It's awesome.
It's coming soon.
I can't wait.
Badges will probably go up on sale shortly after NTRPG.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking for your next con, you can go straight over to us.
Mm-hmm. And who knows, we might have to like slip some sort of discount or something, you know, I don't know, crazy. But yeah, I was going to say what's cool was talking about the long con. We've had friends of ours go to other cons and they're repping us. They're wearing our shirts, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So Alan, if you're listening to the cast, thank you for wearing our shirt over at Balls Con.
Mm-hmm. And we had a buddy of mine was going to Gary Con and let me know he's going to be wearing our shirt there. So that's cool. But yeah, excited about November. Spring, it's just not really a con as much as
it's a game day.
It's a game day, you know, but that's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and we've done really great sales on that. I think we could have done a lot more if we wanted to do a spring con for some bizarre reason.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you know, anyway, that's enough about long con, I suppose. But yeah, as always, we're excited, and spring's going to be fun. I'm hoping to see a few more games put in for Sunday. We'll see. But yeah, that's enough about long con.
It's never enough.
Right.
Never enough. There'll be some fantastic games.
Mm-hmm. But not about long con, but talking about cons.
Cons.
That's right. We heard about a con here in Texas that had some hardships, and we can empathize because, as y'all know, if you're the true believers, you've heard our episode where the long con was going to be no more. We thought we were done for, and it's a shame when these venues, you know, pull the rug out from underneath the last minute and stuff, and you know that you've been good to them or something.
Yeah, I think they said their rate got raised 4 times as well.
Yeah, and it's like one thing to double, but to quadruple,
that's the don't come back rates.
Yeah. But anyway, just our heart goes out to them because, you know, some of us, you know, smaller cons, it's tough when, you know, these venues, and that's what people don't get it when they go, well, you charge whatever amount. It's like, well, because, we have to pay to have our con at a nice venue, you know, and I wish we didn't. If it was free for us, it would be free for y'all and we could, you know, pass along. But one thing we're proud of is we've kept our rate down. We're charging the same thing we've been charging since day one. And I'm not throwing stones at any of the cons that have had to raise their rates. Again, these hotels, they raise their rates. They have to raise the rate of a badge at the con. So anyway.
As long as you feel like you're getting what you paid for.
Yeah.
I think is what it really comes down to.
I think our con's a good deal. I mean,
it's
you know,
a fantastic deal because we're adding on a day without changing the price at all.
Yeah, I mean, we've had special guests and all kind of stuff, and we're constantly innovating. Last year, what was it? We had our fun scavenger hunt, and you got a prize, and those were freebies. I mean, that was, you know, so, and they were nice. Giveaway. So everyone had a lot of fun. I went the other day. That was great. Everyone really enjoyed the scavenger hunt. And I'm tickled I didn't get kicked once, so I was happy.
Because it was twice?
Yeah, it was twice. Yeah, right in the taint. Anyway.
All right. For those of our listeners who tune in just specifically to hear this, here's your barbecue talk for today.
Uh-huh.
You want to tell that story, Matt?
Not at all.
Good. I would love to tell that. So Matt messages me today and says, I'll be over at 10:45. I was like, that's odd. Okay. So he actually shows up on time, which is a rarity for Matt.
Yeah, whatever.
And he gets here and he's like, well, we're going to drive 45 minutes to this really good barbecue place.
Because it's that good.
Riverport.
The barbecue's good. Riverport. Yeah, it's good stuff.
So about the time we pull into town, I'm like, my wife works over here. I should tell her we're going to the restaurant. And I said, yeah, but she's going to tell me, they're closed on Mondays, right? We're recording this one on Monday. So then we turned around and drove our 40 minutes back and had a burger at the local place here in Longview at the Juicy Burger. I'm looking at your Juicy Taco cup from this direction. Threw me off for a moment.
Yeah, but it's juicy hamburgers on one side. And
so they can double use it.
Oh, of course. It
makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's clever.
But have a sip for the working man out there.
That's right. That's right.
But that was the funny barbecue.
Yeah.
There was going to be barbecue talk, and then we wasted an hour and a half.
But you know what?
Drive.
We talked the whole ride, and we had a great time and caught up because I was in Dallas this last weekend. Eddie went to Falls Con, so we had to catch up. And it's because how many times have we did our podcast, and after we hit the off button, we'll sit there and talk for the next hour about stuff we couldn't or wouldn't talk about on the podcast. So
that's because we like to keep this PG-13.
That's always been my rule of thumb, PG-13.
This one's R.
Is
totally
it?
R. It's a hard R.
Kind of like a pirate, R. All right.
But they really just love the C. So speaking of PG ratings, did you see in our popular Facebook group, the No Class Podcast Facebook group, somebody said that we got a shout out, a call out from This Old Dungeon.
We did.
Our buddy Larry put that on there.
Cool. Well, we love Barsh and Lou, and I've not had the opportunity to spend a lot of time around. Is it Nagy?
Yeah, Edwin.
Yeah, Edwin. But he and I faced off against each other in Gladiator Combat at North Texas last year, and he was a lot of fun to game with, and it was very affable. It wasn't at all like, yeah, I got you, buddy, or whatever. And definitely when I was on This Old Dungeon, he was cool. He had some great input, and it was fun to interact with him. So
their most popular episode, in their top 3 most popular episodes, is still me.
Really?
So I am glad that I can throw them a bone like that and help them increase their listens. But anyway, we got a call out, shout out, because they were talking about going over an hour and how we don't really do that. And so it was like, how do you guys respond to that or whatever? And I was like, well, I would say it's quality over quantity.
Oh, that's too funny.
But they were talking about like, if I'm on a drive or something like that and I have a 2-hour ride, I'm like, then just listen to more than one episode.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I find funny is through the years, we've tried to kind of put our finger on the pulse, and we've had just as many people go, wrap it up. You guys are a little long. And just as many people go, man, why are y'all so brief? And we're like, we'll look down and go, oh, we were an hour and 15. God, how did we go so long? And some people are like, I wish you'd go longer. And it's like, well, so I mean, yeah, ha ha. But anyway,
zing pow.
You're so funny.
So I actually had to go through, and I don't listen to podcasts myself, especially RPG podcasts, that much. As much as I love those guys, and as much as I like to listen to my episode over and over, just because I don't want it to be, you're doing the exact same topic that they just did, or you're spouting the exact same opinion.
Because sometimes you can't help but absorb some of that stuff.
Exactly.
So if you're not exposed to it.
But I did listen to their podcast. It's episode number 30. By the way, this is our episode number 80.
Wow.
So get on our level, guys. Catch up.
We'll see if they were shorter, they could do more of them.
Yeah, they've probably got 110 if they would cut them down in half or something.
Yeah.
But So we were talking about that. But listening to theirs, they also had a question. They had, they've got their mailbag segment or whatever, and somebody asked them, how would you cook a dwarf? And then Bill had said, we try to keep this PG-13. I don't want to go into stuff like that. And I was like, if you ask that question to us, that'll be in the barbecue. That'd be in the barbecue talk section.
Exactly.
Be like, that dwarf was delicious.
Barbecue
cooked in
dwarf.
the smoker.
Slow
overnight,
roasted dwarf.
Yep.
Yeah.
18 hours.
The rump.
At about 250.
Rump roast. It's too funny. Yeah.
So what would be a great dwarf recipe for you, do you think?
Well, you got to figure who would really enjoy a good, well-cooked dwarf.
So who are you cooking this for?
You figure you'd be cooking for what, orcs or something?
Okay.
Or here's the thing is, how many times, like, you figure who ran the
Oh, what about giants?
Oh, yeah.
That would be a good one, too.
There's a big animosity. But you'd figure those would almost be like little,
Well,
fun
it's like Gargamel trying to
snacks
catch
or
the
something.
Smurfs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
apparently they're so delicious
but yeah,
you'd want to catch all these dwarves and
you figure you have to eat half a dozen to get like
but
a
that's
belly
where
full.
it's like a pie.
Ah.
Okay, if you're cooking for giants, if you're cooking for all you people out there, this is going to be our new show that we're going to run with, Cooking for Monsters.
Cooking for Monsters.
So it'll be the DMG Monsters and Bill Barsh that these recipes are specifically for.
We love you, Bill.
But yeah, I would say if you're cooking for giants, then bake them up like a pie.
I like that.
Where it's just like, what was it, the blackbird pie or whatever, where it's like 21 birds baked in a pie.
Well, or you remember in Legend, when they cut that one pie open, it had that little goblin in it, or the fairy folk or whatever he was supposed to be, the little guy. My goose is cooked. But I was going to say probably like a dragon. You figure Smaug ran the dwarves out of their home. You figure they would just be like flash fried or whatever.
Oh, dude.
Dragon breath.
Popcorn shrimp dwarf.
Exactly. That's probably what Smaug had was,
I'm getting hungry now. These guys really dropped the ball on this one. Because if it's a dragon, it's like popcorn shrimp.
Yeah, pretty much.
Something like that.
Popcorn dragon.
Fried
popcorn
crawfish tails.
There you go. Yeah.
And then for a giant, you're making a pie. For orcs,
Like skewered, like on a spit.
but I'm also thinking like a perpetual stew,
That's true.
where you could just throw some more dwarf meat off in
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
And I would think for the dwarfs that you'd want to put, it would like ale soaked or something. You'd want to incorporate that dwarven ale in there.
Where they're basically permeated with ale, so
But like that Jack Daniels glaze, that dwarven spirit glaze.
Well, yeah, I love it.
See, isn't this a gold mine? And they just pushed it off.
It's what's the song by the rapper where they dropped that trash on the side of the road and we rode along and scooped it up.
Yep.
That's right. Anyway, it's too funny.
So now you guys know that's how you cook the dwarves.
Yeah. So if you have any more questions about cooking demi-humans, just shoot that to us.
Hey, I may have to put that into the Horde Crawl Classics.
Absolutely.
That might be a recipe book in the back of that. You never know.
Yeah, I like that. Or even like there could be some sort of a subclass of like the orc, like the the cook, the chef.
All your characters lately have been lowly cooks. So
Exactly,
there you go.
just a lowly cook. And with that, there's kind of a funny aside. I don't know where I got that from. I think I do actually. I think in Oriental Adventures, if you play like the rogue in that, basically they tell you like you're not a rogue. Like you basically pick some other class or general profession, and that's what you tell people. Like when they go, "Hey, what are you doing?" You go like, "Oh, I'm a cook," or "I'm just some baggage handler," or whatever. Because no one would look somebody now and go, "I'm a thief," because you'd be like, you'd have your money on your pouch, and when you're there, they couldn't sleep at night to be watching you. Like, "You're gonna steal my stuff. You're a rogue," or "I don't trust that guy. He even says he's a rogue." It's like no one would go, "I'm a thief. I'm a rogue." You'd go, "I'm a scout," or I'll be the group's cook or something. But then conveniently enough, hey, that door was locked earlier, but the cook went up there. Now it's unlocked. I just kind of twist the knob a couple of times. Y'all didn't try it hard enough. I mean, but so that's one of my funny little quirks is the rare instance I play a rogue. They're not a rogue. They're a cook or something, whatever. They're not a rogue, Anyway, haha.
All right, let's get into our main categories here.
Sure.
Do you have some books and movies for us? Or books and comic books, my bad.
I started reading a post-apocalyptic book, and damn it, it's typical. My allergies got me so addled, but it's called,
Let's take advantage of that,
I think
folks.
it's like Ridley Walker, I think. But it was this book that I love. If you're reading it, it talks about this is the Tom Sawyer of our time. This is an epic. This will, sure to be a blockbuster movie or something in 5 years or something. And it's like, most of you out there are like, huh, Ridley what? Who? Yeah. But it's just too funny to see like how the praise on the dust cover of this book. And honestly, if you run in the post-apoc circles, and you'll see this book mentioned periodically, like, have you read Ridley Walker? So I thought, well, I should get my hands on it. So I got it and started reading it. But at the time, I'm kind of half rum-dum with my allergies, and it's all in this sort of post-apoc speak. The way it's written, yeah.
Ugh.
And so
That can be painful.
exactly. So I mean, on a good day, I'd be fine. But me trying to sit here and mentally fill in the blanks of what he's trying to say, and also it's with a because it takes place in post-apoc Great Britain, so you get this kind of a Cockney plus post-apoc, and it's literally phonetically written like that. Oh my god! So I'm having to sound it out like phonetically, but then also with a Cockney accent for it to make sense.
Yeah, that comic, The Crossed, when they're in the future, is like that too, where you're like, just some of that was hard to figure out, and you kind of got to learn it, and then you're like, okay, now that I've deciphered the language, I can get more of an appreciation, but you got to want it, baby.
Oh yeah, but so far the little bit I've got into it, it is intriguing. It's interesting, but I've just started it. But anyway, so that's books for me. Books, comic books for you.
I got comic books. I think I've already mentioned the anime of Claymore.
Oh yeah.
So that was a good one where they're out hunting demons.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently there is a comic book of that too, a manga.
Ah.
And so far it's following along with the anime. So I can't go like, oh, it's so much better. But I'm hoping as I get further in, you get that kind of bonus stuff now that you're reading the book form.
Mm-hmm.
But so far I can recommend both of those to you.
Okay, cool.
TV Wonder.
Okay, so on a goof, on one of my Facebook groups I'm in, someone was talking about that Conan TV show that came out in the late 90s. They were like, it's free on Tubi. So I thought, what do you got to lose? It's free. So I went and watched the first episode, and these episodes are an hour long. But you got to figure, this is around the same time when Xena and Hercules were hot shit. I think whoever did this was trying to cash in on that. And so they're not great by any stretch of the imagination. But for free on Tubi, your mileage may vary. In this, Conan was normally sort of dour and barbaric and cut you in half and whatever. And if you watch this, it's Rolf Mueller, who was Mr. Universe twice in a row. Him and Arnie were good buds. They cast him in this, and he's got the physicality for it, and he's got that. If you like that, you're Conan to have a Austrian German accent, you got it covered. But he's a sweetie pie Conan. So it's kind of his character's this sweetheart who's fighting for the common man, and so it's this
Paladin Conan.
Yeah, so this isn't like your traditional true to Howard's writing kind of a Conan. He's because they want him to be likable.
He's a do-gooder.
He's the hero. Yeah, so he's a do-gooder. He talks it like, oh, leave me alone, or I'm stoic or something. But in the end of the day, he bands with the other adventurers, and he's got this little clique. I think, again, taking shades of Hercules, where these odd characters that drift in and out, like the Prince of Thieves, is there for a few episodes. And there's some girl that he's infatuated with that gets captured by the enemy evil wizard early on, and he's trying to get her back or something. So anyway, but like I said, for a freebie on Tubi, check it out. We watched a couple episodes. What's funny was Mickey Rooney was in the first one, and he had been old as dirt then. Yeah, and I'm figuring it's probably the last thing he acted in. No, he didn't die till 2014, and this was 1997. So no, this wasn't even one of, and he looked old as dirt in this, but they had him as like the village elder, and it's hilarious because it's old Mickey Rooney, You're like, okay. But I love they were like, we need some star power in this. Who can we get for our first Conan episode? For cheap. We can get Mickey Rooney cheap, So yeah, it's so Mickey. But he's actually likable.
So kids, if you know who that is, go ahead and take another one of those Geritol shots.
Take another shot of Geritol if you know who Mickey Rooney is. But anyway, yeah. So that's as far as TV. That's the TV we've watched. And I'll say this, it's like TV/movies. We had started to watch Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan. And then I told Heather, I said, "Did you ever see the episode this is based off of?" She goes, "No." I said, "Stop."
Space Seed.
So we went back and watched, the original episode in season, what is it, 1 or 2 with Khan Noonien Singh, and it's actually pretty good. And it's got old Ricardo Montalban, and he played the part great. So then having seen that, she goes, "Oh, now I get why he's got this axe to bear." And you had that point of reference. And then we went back and watched, The Wrath of Khan, So that's kind of a little TV and movie. But yeah, that's it for TV.
All right, you'll love this one because you already know part of it.
Yeah.
Since I was away for a con, what Matt loves when we share a room at a con is when we have some quiet downtime, and you can turn on the Storage Wars and just zone out. He loves that.
Yeah.
So I sent him a picture of me sitting on the bed
Watching
Storage Wars.
Well, I opened it up and I saw it was a picture from a TV screen. I knew it was Storage Wars, and that's funny. Which I don't have any particular hatred for Storage Wars, but it's a lot of that stuff that's on what used to be History Channel, or the laughably now Learning Channel, is this just repetitive crap with these goofball morons. But the idea is it's dirt cheap to make.
Yep.
And people are dumb enough to watch this shit. They're going to keep making it. They don't have to pay for writers. It writes itself, sorta. Ugh. Anyway.
Well, you'll enjoy this now. Apparently, the wars concept has gone even further because they used to have like storage wars and parking wars and
What the hell was
shipping
parking?
wars.
What was parking wars?
I think that was where they were giving out parking tickets and stuff like that, where they would go on patrol with like meter maids. Yeah.
I wish I could see the look on my face of just
see. That's where you need a video.
boggling, incredulous.
You'll love this one even more. Now they have neighborhood wars and road wars, and I don't have A&E anymore. It's not part of my streaming stuff, so I never see that. Only when I get stuck in a hotel room and put it on and zone out. But now there's neighborhood wars or whatever, where it's just like people acting badly in the neighborhood, and like this is some of their surveillance footage from their cameras, or this is when the cops showed up. And
because everyone's got a Ring now, so I wonder about the quality of it. They're basically showing Ring video
stuff that you'd see on YouTube.
Wow.
And putting it together and making a show.
But
I was
yet,
like,
if people will queue up to watch this shit, they'll put it out there.
But if Storage Wars was making you doubt for the future of humanity, definitely don't watch those shows, because then you'll know it's all over with.
Wow. God. And I hate that. I mean, I remember years ago watching the Learning Channel, and it was awesome. And the History Channel, I used to love those channels because I learned some history and I learned things on the Learning Channel. It's a shame.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Well, that's like there used to be music on MTV. But,
So go ahead and take that Geritol shot for that, kids.
There you go for that.
Reminisce.
That's right.
All right. How about some movies?
All right, here we go. So
Wrath of Khan?
We watched Wrath of Khan, yep, and that's a classic. We watched Dragon Slayer from 1981. Interesting enough, that was rated PG, even though it had brief frontal nudity, male, and some side boob.
Kind of like this show.
Yeah, this was a big deal as Disney was involved. That was the first time there'd probably ever been nudity in a Disney movie. Disney Paramount did it together. The dragon was 1/4 of the film's budget, and it was done by ILM, which Industrial Light and Magic. That was their first time not working on a Lucasfilm. Vermithrax pejorative is the dragon's name. The dragon's breath was military flamethrowers, was what they used to generate the gusts of flame. What would simply be CGI these days was cutting-edge special effects for 1981. It holds up, which says a lot. Seriously, we were watching it, and I thought, those are really good. Like, you're not like, you can go watch a lot of shit from their days that you thought, man, that was cutting edge. You look now and go, you know what I mean? Yeah, no, really holds up. And Guillermo del Toro and G.R.R. Martin have been noted to say that this is their favorite on-screen dragon, was the dragon from Dragon Slayer. Because it was like 16 separate models, and one of them was 40 foot tall. To be able to, but they spliced it all together to make the dragon in the movie, you know. But one of the neat things was, I was reading, up till before this time, they had used like claymation, which is like stop motion, but this was go motion, which had actually first been introduced by ILM in one of the Star Wars movies. But it's basically the thing where, you know how claymation looks kind of herky jerky. Well, this, how it looks smooth and realistic is this go, instead of stop motion, it's go motion, they called it. But that's a whole other thing. Anything you want to say about Dragon Slayer?
I miss it. I miss Dragon Slayer.
Yeah, and that was 1981. Like, good Lord, where does the time go? And we watched Excalibur from 1981. Wow, 40 years old. Of course, so was the other one. So much talent in that film. Karen Hines, a.k.a. Caesar from Rome. Gabriel Byrne, Nicole Williamson, was brilliant as Merlin. Dame Helen Mirren, that's one of her earlier movies. Liam Neeson, I think his first movie. Patrick Stewart, and even I could go on and on. Liam and Helen lived together for 4 years. They met on set. He was quoted as him and Karen Hines were buddies, and he leans over and like, damn, like he was like, look at that, The initial fight scene had to be shot 3 times, and the cameraman had a nervous breakdown because of somehow the film kept getting fouled or messed up. Dame Helen Mirren and Nicole Williamson were initially reluctant to work with each other. They were not on speaking terms at the time. I told this to Kirby on our road trip recently, but I had part of the story wrong. But anyway, they became good friends during the filming and thereafter. But they had both worked on stage in Great Britain, and they had some sort of difficulty before this. Anyway, the director Borman had his daughter play Igraine, and his son played the young Mordred. And if you'll remember, Igraine was the character that gets, schmurgled pretty early in the whole thing with a dude wearing plate mail or whatever. So it's wild that that's his daughter and he's filming it. The entire movie was shot in Ireland. Borman wanted to shoot Lord of the Rings but couldn't get the rights, so he made this instead. The charm of making, spoken by Merlin and Morgana, is an attempt at Old Irish that translates as serpent's breath, charm of death and life, thy omen of making. Did you know that Max von Sydow was usually cast as Merlin? Yeah. And then the studio said to Borman, anyone can play Merlin except Nicole Williamson. So it's funny. But I'll tell you, he's been in other movies, and he was an accomplished actor. He was an actor's actor. But apparently he was very eccentric. And for some people, he's supposed to be kind of hard to work with. Explains why maybe Helen Mirren initially was reluctant to work with him. But if you've not ever seen Excalibur, I mean, Nicole Williamson devours every scene he's in playing Merlin, and a lot of people said that was his crowning thing, as far as film acting, But anyway, that's my movies.
All right, you got some classics.
Oh yeah.
So I'll give you a not very classic.
Aha.
Have you seen John Carpenter's? And now you're like, oh boy, John Carpenter,
Yeah,
right?
John Carpenter. Yeah.
Ghost of Mars.
Never heard of it.
Keep it that way.
Okay, thank you.
So, speaking of the legendary British actresses, this one has Dame Judi Dench.
Oh my.
Playing the judge in it.
Okay.
Anyway, so it's somewhat post-apoc-ish, so that's why I got interested in it. Maybe I'll take some MCC type inspiration for this.
Yeah.
So you have your usual band of adventurers on Mars, and they're mining Mars because they're always mining on Mars.
Yeah, always.
And they uncover the spirits, the ghosts of Mars, and they're possessing people and turning them into almost like Road Warrior-esque type of humans, where they're filing down their teeth and murdering people and decapitating the crap out of them. It's got Pam Grier.
Oh wow.
It's got is it Natasha Henstridge, the one that was Species, the one where it was she was so hot for 5 minutes of the 90s there, where she was the big thing.
Oh yeah.
Jason Statham.
Oh wow.
Ice Cube.
Wow. These are some names.
Yeah, and it's awful. It's some of the worst acting you will ever see, some of the worst special effects you will ever see.
Wow.
I'm going to talk. Oh, we've got a Twitch show coming up, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more on there.
Okay.
That's how bad it was. That I still have depths to plumb with it.
Wow.
So
okay.
yeah, it was a bad time, and it's John Carpenter's last movie.
Did he die?
No,
But he just gave up after
that was it.
Yeah.
That was the big bomb where it was
Bombed so hard, he's like, I'm done. I'm out.
But
Go out on a good note.
Picture Snake Plissken in your mind.
Uh-huh.
Call me Snake. And his little whatever almost tight body armor type shirt that he has on, that black shirt.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Ice Cube's wearing it running around in this movie.
Nice.
And you're like, was Snake supposed to be in this movie? And yes, it was supposed to be Escape from Mars.
Originally.
Until Escape from LA did so bad.
Uh-huh.
Then they're like, okay, that branding isn't going anywhere, but we'll put him in the shirt so that you get it wink wink what this is supposed to be.
Uh-huh.
But he's like Desolation Jones.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, even from that name, you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty bad. Highly do not recommend it to you. And yes, we'll get to laugh at it some more. All right, how about some video games?
Now, when is this Twitch show coming out you're talking about?
It'll be about a week away from whenever you hear this on April the 4th.
4th. Yep. Tuesday, April the 4th.
At 6 Texas time.
Yeah. 6 p.m. at Texas time.
That's how we do ours. We don't worry about Eastern time.
Exactly. Forget that Eastern time.
So please do check it out and let them know how much you love us.
Exactly.
All right, video games.
I have caught myself doing a few of the dailies a little bit on 76.
How dare
But
you?
that's it. And even then, I can only do so much before I go, ugh. Because I guess I'm just kind of bored with it, which is a shame. But I love Heather sit there and she'll watch. She's just so fascinated. I'll be blowing stuff with my AK-47. I got back on the Shotgun Preacher. I was playing with y'all, and I was looking at the church. I'd forgot the name I put on front of it, which is Saint Jehoshaphat's Fully Anointed Full Gospel. 5 or 6 more words or whatever, church. So if you ever find this little church out in the wastelands of 76, that's the Shotgun Preacher there,
If you're on PS.
Exactly, if you're on PS. But I love he's still wearing his preacher's outfit, and he's got that hat like the guy wore in, what's that, Poltergeist 2. So he's got the whole, and he's got his shotgun. But I tell you, the shotgun don't do near as well as the AK. I hate it because Heather's watching. She's like, you don't get your ass beat like this. Normally I said, that's the AK guy, the Shotgun Preacher. Yeah, for some reason the shotgun... I'd rather, I don't know, I don't want to get shot by either one, but I don't get it why that shotgun didn't do more than it does in the game.
You got to be close up on them.
Yeah, that's how I like to fight. So it's
and you got to have all the little bennies for it.
But I love one time, it's me, you, and Jen were doing something, and Jen, I guess, liked shotgun, so I'd given her a pretty good shotgun I had found. And I remember it was you'd ran off to check on something, all of a sudden, right around the corner was a greater elder, what's the badass thing in the game, Deathclaw or whatever. Mm-hmm. And we were like, shit, Eddie, get back over here. But about that time, me and your wife both started shooting the thing in the knees, and we kneecapped it. And the thing's crawling across. The time you round the corner, it's crawling towards us slowly, pulling itself, which I love that the game's got that dynamic. But we're like, we done kneecapped it. We got this. And we just started shooting it in the face at point blank range. And we're like, But yeah, we blew its kneecaps off with the shotgun. Anyway.
Good times.
Good memories.
So... I've been playing the old Pokemon Scarlet a little bit. I beat it, whoop-de-woo. Mm-hmm. I'm coming back and doing some of the in-game stuff. The in-game's actually been a little bit more fun, so. But, I mean, there's really nothing to it. It's just a bunch of series of fights at that point.
I wanted to ask you, you are the video game guy, and you've played all those Castlevanias umpteenth times. Is there a shmoo in the Castlevania games?
What did you call me?
You heard me. Anyway. Shmoo. You know what shmoo is, right?
I know it's going over my head.
Wow. Okay. Okay. We're going to go off on that. So in like Ozark lore, and there was a guy named Al Cap or something that used to do Little Abner. Again, if you get these references, go take your shot of Geritol. But
I'm feeling younger by the minute.
Exactly. But there was a very highly popular cartoon strip a long time ago called Little Abner. And Little Abner lived in Dogpatch, USA. Anyway, well, he had like one of his some sort of benevolent animal companion kind of thing was this thing called a shmoo. And a shmoo was this benevolent creature that you could eat it, and it was a little companion, and it could turn into different weird shit. It was a whole thing. It was really crazy. But anyway, the shmoo was like this white amorphous blob with legs, and it had little whiskers. Was there anything in any of those games you ever fought in Castlevania that was some amorphous white creature sort of thing? You're giving me no, but
not off the top of my head, but there's a bunch of crap in there. Like there's in Castlevania 4, I think there's a part where you're fighting horse heads.
Wow. Okay. Kind of like a little Godfather reference, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to say this because, and we're going down the rabbit hole here, but the other day I drove around the back side of some of that abandoned brick building shit, not too far from my house, down way from downtown Longview, and somebody had painted like 1197 shmoo, and it was they had spray painted like, what do you call the shit, like this is my
tag,
my tags, this guy's tag was shmoo. So first of all, I was like, who the hell would know what a shmoo was? I think in 97, let alone here we are. God, how many years later? 97's been a while, but it's faded, but you can still make it out. But I remember thinking, wow, shmoo. So I started Googling shmoo, and in all the shit that it referenced, it said that there was a shmoo that maybe it was the Japanese version, I guess what I said, the Americanized version of one of the Castlevania games where you fight a shmoo at one point and it'll drop one of the best weapons in the whole game or something like that. But not every time. Which I didn't even know it worked that way. I thought if something dropped something.
You'd have to show me a picture so I would know exactly what it. But
anyway, we went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
There. Yeah.
Additionally, going down the old man rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Herculoids.
Yeah.
Didn't they have one on there?
Well,
but that was just a blob, right?
The Herculoids were meant to be shmoo-esque. But those are the Herculoids were all those creatures, but there were those Gloop and Gleep. Mm-hmm. Gloop and Gleep were kind of shmoo-esque. So they basically, if you get the reference and you know what Gloop and Gleep look like, they're kind of like shmoos. But the thing is, like in the Dog Patch, Little Abner cartoon strip or whatever, like you could eat the shmoo. It was edible or something, and it would give its life for you, turn into a delicious roast duck or something, and whatever.
That's more disturbing to me than cooking the dwarf.
Exactly. I mean, definitely y'all check this out, or don't. But anyway, haha.
All right, we'll edit that out.
Yeah, please do.
That's completely lost our place. How
Video
about an
games.
RPG update? Unless you had more video games.
I'm anxious to play some more Castles and Crusades. I had a lot of fun with that the other day when I was with Doug and Nicole, Kirby, Heather, and some of the gang. We got together and we had some fun playing Castles and Crusades. I'm looking forward to playing some more. I wouldn't mind getting a campaign of that going, And we did Savage Worlds the other day on game night. We had a good time with that,
Any interesting stories? No, it wasn't.
Not particularly, no. Not off the top of my head.
Right.
Or not ones that I can share, that kind of thing,
All right. Well, I can tell the audience this because I already told you this.
Yeah.
Up at the con, I ran a game of Horde Crawl Classics, which is going to be our monster. You play as monsters game, so it's more on the dark side of things, or it can be. So
can be.
When you get into it, it's kind of like, okay, let's kind of establish what our limits are here. How dark do we want this to go?
For any game that needs a session 0, you absolutely have to have a session 0 for this. Or
maybe we'll get canceled before we get started.
I hope not, but I could see that in this day and age.
So to reiterate that, I'm playing the Village of Hamlet. I'm using that as a base. So
Sandbox style.
Yeah. So it's like, here's the little town. You guys come in and start causing some havoc. Keep it on the down low, and you'd rather create suspicion amongst them instead of like, oh, there's monsters attacking our town. Try to, keep it on the down low.
You want them at each other's throats, not having a unified enemy to stand
exactly.
against. Yeah.
So the first place that they go in and start messing with the villagers, they decide they're going to kidnap this one farmer's wife. And so as they are taking her back to the little dungeon outpost that they live in, the one orc player is like, take off her dress. And I'm like, uh-oh. And it gets kind of like, what? And he's like, yeah, we'll take off her dress and we'll leave it at somebody else's house. And then they'll suspect that they had something to do with the kidnapping. And that's where I'm like, oh boy, that could have been bad.
Uh-huh.
Then they come back into the village and they bust into another house and they're going to kidnap a little kid. Mm-hmm. So there you go. And as they're taking the little kid off, I was like, all right, where's this going? And the same orc player is like, let's hang the kid in the Druid's Grove. And the players kind of look and they're like, huh? And he's like, yeah, we'll hang him up by his feet. And it's like, oh. So he just kept coming up with
so each time when you think
stuff.
It's going to be so dark, and then it's like, wah.
Yeah, it's like, beat him to the tickle monster.
Get a feather,
So that was one of the interesting stories. But the most interesting story is how we almost had a fist fight at that table.
Modern gaming is awesome.
So cliffhanger, check out the Twitch show when you want to hear that story.
If you want to hear about who got their ass kicked at FallsCon.
Yep. Okay.
Or didn't.
So that's our RPG at the table update, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Now we get into our topic.
Oh my!
We'll have to cut this one off because we're getting close.
Really?
We're getting close. We don't want to pull this old dungeon.
We'll never hit the 3-hour mark.
But okay, so I'll let you guys see behind the curtain a little bit here. Last night, Matt's like, "Do you want to go to lunch today and do a podcast?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay, sure. What's the topic?" A couple of hours go by. Topic dragons. Okay. Does that mean the topic is dragons? Or they're kind of like business speak or something like, these are the topic dragons that take up your time away from the customers. So I'm like, would you care to elaborate on that?
No.
The answer is no.
That's right.
So we have not talked about the topic at all. And I have a feeling we're going to go in two different directions here.
Which we commonly do in these sort of instances.
So let's see. Would you
Okay.
like to kick this off or?
Whichever you prefer.
All right, start it up. I would like to see where
Okay.
you went with this.
Dragons can be seen in the mythologies, legends, and folk tales of various cultures. In some cultures, it's a good creature. In the Middle East, it's been associated with serpents and evil. Dragons are part of heraldry, and their image can be seen on Viking shields and carved into the prow of Viking ships. In Christianity, it became associated with sin and paganism. There it can be seen depicted under the heel of saints and martyrs and was a creature of the underworld. Chinese dragons appear more serpent-like, while the biblical dragon of Revelation, the old serpent, was many-headed like the Greek hydra. The Chinese dragon Lung represents Yang, the principle of heaven, activity, and maleness in the yin-yang of Chinese cosmology. Asian dragons are wingless, but are associated with the air. And then talking about D&D, Tiamat, the queen of D&D's evil dragons, originally comes from Mesopotamian mythologies. She was both a creator goddess and the monstrous embodiment of primordial chaos. She was depicted as a sea serpent and a dragon. And then there is an Arabic deity known as Bahamut, the name Rob Kuntz and Gygax gave to the greatest of the good metallic dragons. He is the platinum dragon, and he did not appear until first edition D&D. And so that's just some of the mythology and folklore and whatever cultural stuff about dragons. But then they came into D&D, and there's talking, going into that side of it, because this generally segues into it towards the end of our chats about role playing. So yeah, it's called Dungeons and Dragons.
So the next episode is going to be dungeons, is what you're telling me.
No, but it's talking about how, like, it's not Dungeons and Butt Weasels, it's Dungeons and Dragons. So, but with that in mind, like, should a dragon be a rare thing? Is it something you should not see very often, or should they be ubiquitous? Like, oh, dragons everywhere, And that's where, in 4th edition, there were a few things I didn't like, and some of those things carried over to 5th edition. One of the things I wasn't really crazy about the Dragonborn. And when somebody's like, you're just no fuddy-duddy, well, I am. But the fact is, to me, dragons should be rare and wondrous and be something maybe that even in the D&D world, like, are dragons real? Are they, just some myth or something like that? And so the thing is, like, when you fight a dragon, that's like an in-game thing. They are the big bad. Because when you run a dragon, I've seen a guy who decided to throw dragons at us, and then he realized what he had done, and he started kind of soft pedaling or, kind of going easy on us. And I'm like, don't do this. Don't dishonor the dragon in that way. Dragons didn't live 300 and 400 and 500 years being dumbasses. That thing is cunning. It's clever. Play it to the fullest of its abilities. And then when we beat it, we could really pat ourselves on the back, and we did, because we got insanely lucky. But my point being that, that segues what I'm saying. I mean, the dragon is in the name, but it should be the penultimate threat. And I think, play them cunning, play them smart. They've got bites and claws and wing attacks and that awful breath attack. And that's where, back to the point of 4th edition with the Dragonborn, they were like dragon people. And I'm like, oh wait, so there's a dragon lives next door. I'm going down to the market. Oh, there's Fred the dragon. It just sort of, to me, took away part of the mystique of the dragon, that it's like, oh yeah, there's a race of dragon. And I mean, I get it. Some people are like, oh cool, I want to play a dragon person. And that's cool. I get that. But I think it should be something like, it shouldn't be, well, they're an actual race. It'd be like there was some weird sorcerer's magic and you're this rare one dragon. Again, as a player, wouldn't you rather be like, yeah, I'm unique and interesting, even more so, I'm a dragon person, you know? Or just actually, didn't you play a dragon one time in some D&D campaign through the years? Or am I crazy? Is that somebody else?
Could be both.
Yeah, but anyway. But yeah, anyway. To you, sir.
So, yeah, you're in Dungeons and Dragons. You're always in a dungeon, it seems like.
Oh, yeah.
But you're never fighting a dragon.
Yeah.
So, in a way, since it's Dungeons and Dragons, I can pretty much count on my fingers and toes how many times we've actually fought dragons.
Yeah.
Which is not very much.
Yeah.
So, in a way, I get it. Like, save it for an end boss.
Mm-hmm.
But how far do you get? You know, you got to think about it. Like, the whole D&D experience is 1st to 6th level at best.
Yeah.
So when are you going to fight? When are you ever going to fight a dragon? If you completely save it.
And that was one of the interesting things in 4th edition. One of the very first adventures that was in the back of the DMG, there was a white dragon.
It was with a ton of kobolds.
Yeah, it was a young white dragon. But the cool thing was, they were like, hey, let's lean into that. This is called Dungeons and Dragons. And I love how you had a chance to fight a dragon in the very first adventure.
But on the flip side, I don't know if I like that.
Exactly.
Like, the very first thing you did was kill a dragon.
Well,
okay, where do we go from here?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So
Go kill a dungeon?
yeah. So what's your opinion on that, folks? Yeah. But I keep going, but I'm just saying, like, that. So where would you lean? Like, dragons should be ubiquitous and everywhere and all the time and constantly fighting dragons, or they're the major storyline, or should it be like that's an in-game boss and they're sort of ephemeral, or are they even real? You know, and then you fight one and they are real, and I don't know. So, because that's where I've leaned through the years playing D&D is, as a game master, I could count on one hand how many times I've used dragons. Yeah.
Well, I'll say, I don't know, on the flippity flop of that, in Barbarians of the Ruined Earth, in the post-apoc, I had dragons in the introduction adventure.
Huh.
And you're not going to fight them.
Yeah.
But I think it's there to give you that sense of wonder, like, oh, here's the thing that we can't screw with.
Mm-hmm. Well, you remember, or were you there for that, or had you part of company then? But when I ran the adventure, yeah, I think you were still there when we all went down to get that water purifier under the hospital or something in post-apoc Longview, and there was that dragon down there, but he was just there for flair, for character to interact with. And I remember someone's like, let's fight him for all of his cool loot. And because it's post-apoc, his loot was like a disco ball and a picture of Farrah Fawcett, the poster from the 70s, and just funny little things. A chance for me to have fun, but no, I didn't even stat the thing out. If y'all had fought it, you would have died horribly.
Exactly.
So again,
and in a way, juvenile dragons do cheapen that to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, would you be like, I'm awesome because I went in and killed a 6-year-old goblin?
Yeah.
Not really. So, I mean,
You ever seen the picture of the dragon? I'm sure, of course you've seen the picture where the dragon's hanging from a tree and there's the adventuring party standing there. One of them's got their hand on it. It's almost like they're posing for the Facebook picture of like, we killed a dragon. You're like, yeah, it's all of about 3 foot long and looks kind of weedy. And
yeah, it's like when mom finds out,
you're effed.
That next picture was them getting smoked.
Yeah.
And I think that was in the 2nd edition player's handbook, maybe.
Or something like that.
I don't know if that's its original usage.
Beautiful piece of artwork, but yeah.
But it does look kind of dumb because it is such a tiny dragon. It's like,
we killed a dragon. Yeah.
Did you get some baby seals on the way too?
Did you close
This looked like it was half starved and maybe fresh out of the egg.
Yeah.
It'd been even funnier if there were pieces of eggshell there.
laying there. Yeah. Because it looks like this thing hatched like last week.
Yeah. We smacked him as he was coming out.
Like we had seen his mother fly away and thought, let's rush real quick and loot the lair. We saw the baby and figured, let's kill a dragon while we're here looting the lair.
Just imagine if you were the GM for that party and that was the backstory, and it's like, and then they go back to town and tell everybody about the dragon they killed. And as they're partying in the bar, the town just catches flame.
Yeah.
It's like, you guys are done. And goes back to like, towns would hate adventurers.
Oh, yeah. That's what we talked about
Cause so much trouble.
Yeah. Because you got to figure the dragon would either, probably able to track them back, or B, the other thing was, the older dragons had magic, and dragons can turn into humanoids. And you figure there could be someone sitting right in that bar going, oh, you're the SOBs that killed my kid. And then all of a sudden they morph into a dragon, the roof collapses, and they immolate the whole town. Yeah, like you say.
Or it's just like, hey, my kid's dead.
Yeah.
I'm gonna burn everything in 100-mile radius.
Yeah. Just
Why not? I
cover my
can.
bases. Yeah, yeah. And that's what's wild going back to watching the movie Dragon Slayer, where the king of the realm had made a deal with the dragon where it got fed a virgin on the autumnal equinox and the other one, you know. And basically, oh, that's terrible and awful. Yeah, well, before we had that deal, it would just go through the countryside, killing everything and burning everything down. Yeah, you know, we hate it, but two virgins as opposed to wanting destruction of the countryside, you know, every couple of years. Yeah, we'll do the whole virgin thing, you know. But it's like, won't someone slay the dragon? Yeah, good luck with that. You know, it's a dragon.
And if you don't, the deal's off, and they just go back and rip everything up like they were doing.
Well, that's like I don't want to give anything away for spoilers for I haven't seen Dragon's Lair, but there's a part where they go to get this ancient wizard to kill the dragon. And basically the ancient wizard's apprentice goes, Master, you know, I mean, yeah, you're an incredibly powerful wizard, but you're a frail little dude. Like, they live like leagues and leagues away. Like, you're going to have to travel for days to the coastline, riding a boat and a rocking boat at sea and all the inclement weather and being on a little ship. And then it's over the mountains. I mean, these people came a long ways. Do you think you're up to the trip? You know, I mean, yeah, it's, you know, so anyway.
Well, then it's even, could you beat a dragon on your best day?
When that's, yeah, this guy's supposed to be a powerful wizard, but this thing, and even when they bring the scales to me, he looks at it and he goes, oh my, he goes, this is an old dragon. Like, he knows it's going to be a tough fight, you know.
But I will say the vampires should get that appreciation too.
Oh, absolutely.
Not as much as a dragon, but they should be way up there too, like the ancient dragons, ancient vampires.
Anyone that phones in playing
Dracula.
a vampire or a dragon, I get mad because it's like, you know, don't use them unless you're going to play them right. And like you said, respect him, because that vampire's lived hundreds of years, or that if it's a proper vampire. I mean, if it was one that he's the get of some vampire that made him last week, okay, I get it. You know,
I can see that more than juvenile dragons even.
yeah, that I can get. But yeah, as far as if this is a dragon that's lived hundreds of years, it's cunning. And even if its brain should be probably as big as a human's, I mean, maybe incapable of speech. But the fact, I mean, that's why they give higher level, older dragons got magic in old D&D. I think they still do. And now I will give them in 5th edition, they give them those layer powers, which were really clever because they've imbued their very layer with a certain amount of magical energy and whatnot. But, and I'm glad they did that because it should be a threat. That should be one of the toughest fights you ever fight, should be a dragon. So one thing 5th edition got right is those layer powers and those, what are those powers that renew on a dice roll or
Recharges.
Where I love, like, once per round, it just ignores one spell. Because I even tell that story through the years. There's times where, like, we're going to die. We're going to get our ass kicked. And the wizard got off that one lucky spell. I got off slow on the dragon. The game master rolled a 1. The only way that dragon could fail.
Legendary reaction or whatever.
Now it's like, yeah, where it's like, one, no, I'll just shrug off that spell. Nah, you're not getting a slow off on him. What? Yeah, this is an ancient dragon, or, you know, full grown adult dragon. Nah, this ain't no piker. I love that. And, you know, as a game master, respect the dragon. You know, it's one of the penultimate threats. And like you said with the vampire as well, they're a big threat. And I'll tell you, I forgot how scary vampires were, because as I don't want to sound like that guy, but it's true. As the game has marched along, the players have got more powerful. And that's one thing. But I even feel like some of the monsters have become watered down. And now, if there's not any monster that we're playing fish, you're like, oh, it's an X, I'm going to go, but I mean, old school D&D, if you said ghoul, vampire, dragon, literally
level drain.
Yeah, you're going to hear buttholes puckering at the table. I mean, the fear was there, and there's something that's been lost in that fact, because I'd forgot how. But I went back a while back when I was converting some old school D&D monsters into DCC, because they had some charts on the internet. They're free, by the way, and you can find them pretty easy for converting old school monsters into DCC. And I started reading the old school vampire, and it's like a whole page. Like, some of those monsters are a quarter page, and I went, oh God, I'd forgotten how badass vampires are. I mean, scary bad, like whoop the living shit out of you bad. And then if you were like that GM who's particularly sadistic, oh, there's rules for adding in like levels of cleric or wizard to boot, as if the vampire wasn't bad enough. I was like, ew. I mean, yeah. So yeah, those are the big threats, you know. Liches, you know. Yeah, those are the ones. Yeah, if you're going to use
So let's have a Dracolich.
Exactly. There you go. Yeah. One of those real nasty things. I remember in Living Greyhawk, we beat a Dracolich, and it was a tough. At the end of that fight, there were high fives and hoots and hollers, and people went down. You know what I mean? It's like, well, we'll see if we can get you a res. I mean, it was a real fight. I mean, high level, badass, well played characters. Some people bought the dirt, and it's when it's like, let's see if this. Hopefully, this won't turn into a TPK kind of situation, you know. And on that note, I've been meaning to tell you, we should probably have some cool drinks at the con, names like the TPK and the Critical Hit, you know, or something. Anyway,
The Critical Role.
that we'll have some rolls, freshly baked rolls. That can be the
But I think me and
roll
you
for initiative.
watched like 10 minutes of that animated show too, right? Because they seem like they fight a dragon in that pretty fast.
Yeah. Ding, ding,
Way
ding.
too fast.
But I think the dragon kicked their ass too, though, for what it's worth. So, but yeah. Which that's the thing I laugh about is like old school D&D. There were untiered encounters, which was a term that only came along later. There wasn't a term for it. It's just here's an encounter you're not meant to fight.
Those were called fuck around and find outs.
Exactly. Yeah, but no, you know, with FIFO accounts, yeah, and then eventually they were called untiered, but that was a fancy term for you're not meant to fight this. You're supposed to have the mental wherewithal to know this, and it was sad when you're in the party with the one jackass who doesn't get that, and everybody dies. Because I've heard, luckily, I've avoided a lot of that jackassery, but I've heard some stories and some grudges have been held for decades about, I can't believe you talk shit to an elder Afridi Lord. Well, I mean, they wouldn't throw something at us for not meant to fight. No, they absolutely would. You weren't meant to fight an elder Afridi Lord. Oh well, you know, whatever. And so, you know, that some of that mentality is definitely crept in, and there's just some things you're meant to run away from if you can. Or for a lot of times me, there's going to be hints there. You know, it's like, okay, you had your hints, you didn't have, and it's usually said where you don't have to fight the thing, but you initiated it. All right, I'm going to sleep like a baby tonight after I whoop the living shit out of you. You had your warnings or whatever, you know. No, it's not cool if it's like, oh, I'm going to throw a fire giant, you know, king against some third level players or something. Like, come on, man. You know, did you give him some warning? Did you give him a chance? You know, nah, you know, well, that's not cool. But you really don't see that. And I would be the first one to advocate for the players if they were belly aching over something like that. But,
Well, I remember in the talking about dragons, the Isle of Dread, there was a random encounter chart, and one of them was like a freaking red dragon. So I rolled it up on him, and I was like, it flies overhead, and you see it go by, and that's it.
and you can just leave it alone.
Yep. And then somebody jumped up and wanted to screw with it.
I'm going to shoot it.
So he's just like, drop that napalm on the area, and boom, the guy that went out to, I'll go with him. I've got to help him. That's the guy that got killed. The guy doing the shooting and starting the fight, nope, survived.
Of course not.
The helper didn't make it.
Yeah, the Mr. Helpful, the one sweet player's like, I'll get on that table to help them out. Yeah, that's how that goes. And that guy's a good guy. Yeah, so that's a shame. You know, the guy who really didn't deserve it, of course, bought it. But see, that's a perfect example. I'm talking about a dragon too. It's like, just let it fly by. Let that dragon go on by. But no, we got to shoot it. We got to fight it, right? No.
And how does it respond? With one little flick, basically. It's like, here, ants.
Yeah.
You're so beneath me. I'll give you this amount of attention and goodbye.
So I remember there's on the random counter chart, there's that red dragon. Well, it seems like there's on that same chart or somewhere, whatever, there's a green dragon. And I remember there's even something alludes to a green dragon somewhere or whatever. You know, well, again, yeah, it was one of the earliest adventures on the ship there, something like that. The thing's flying around. And somehow it seemed like, hey, let's try to get its attention or mess with it or whatever. And it comes out and breathes on the ship. And I think somebody died. And it's like, and there were a bunch of people like, oh my God, they took full damage from the breath weapon. It's like, yeah, it's poison. I mean, yeah, so at least it wasn't the fire dragon be hilarious. Like, well, the ones you didn't burn to a crisp, you're in the middle of the ocean on a ship. Good luck with that. You know, hope you can make it to the shore. What about the lifeboat? It's on fire too. You know, at least this was a green dragon, so it was poison.
Don't worry, those friendly sharks will help you.
And I love someone's like, I'll go below deck. Yeah, this stuff, it's, you know, it sinks. So it just goes downstairs too, you know. Ugh. Anyway, but yeah, no, I've the few times I haven't fought a lot of dragons in 40 years of playing D&D or whatever, but yeah, I can remember fighting a green dragon way back in the day in Gary's campaign, and we half the party died, and the other half fled for their lives. I mean, it was nasty, and it was one of those deals like, we'll run and hide to mind. Doesn't matter, you know. It just breathes into the tunnel, and it just goes in there. You know, I mean, because it's a ghast. It'll just creep around corners, and it wants to go to the lowest point. And we died and died and died.
Yeah. But keep in mind, as a player, you don't have to be smarter than the dragon.
Yeah.
You just have to be smarter than the GM.
Yeah. But definitely, hopefully someone plays them smart. You figure like 2 claw attacks, a bite attack, wing baffet, tail slap, then their breath weapon, which is the nastiest thing. When we were playing Adventures League, what was it? One time you were playing your Elven Wizard and I was playing Discane. And I remember I took the brunt of the breath weapon and failed to save and had like 2 or 3 hit points left. And like if anybody else there had failed, they'd have been down, you know. And what level we were then? But yeah, that was nasty. That was a nasty encounter. I think we were standing in knee deep water, and I think that was like, and it was a blue dragon or something, so it's electricity, and we were like, this is not going to end well, you know.
I want to say that was the one where I was fighting it from another room.
Yeah, like you were doing something like you were like would lean out and throw a fireball and duck back or something like that.
Arcane eye or something that you cast through.
Yeah.
But I'm in the back sipping tea, throwing a fireball every so often. It's like, hope it's going well for you guys.
Yeah. Good luck with that. Yeah.
I'm not even going in the same room with it.
I had a bard I played years ago where he'd be in the other room doing that thing where you could motivate your party. He'd be like, can y'all hear me from the next room? Yeah, go fight the day. I'm giving you +1 to hit and damage or whatever from the next room. I'm not even coming in the room. Nope.
And speaking of like red dragons or whatever, where it's like, or I guess just dragons in general, where you're like, there's going to be a dragon here that we've got to deal with. Let's all cluster up.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I move over here. We all move over there next to him.
Yeah.
Like,
how many times
spread out,
you idiots?
Fireball formation.
Yeah, well, that's the joke. It's like, hey, we sure are gathered up tight in a nice little fireball formation. Yeah, but it's funny was the last 5th edition game I probably ran was the one I ran at Long Con, and it was when that couple, the mom and son, came from, was it Iowa? Were they from?
I think so.
Yeah, and it was a great big old black dragon, but they had it in this room that was like barely big enough for the black dragon. I was like, so really that worked against the dragon. It would have been a much tougher fight, and I tried to play the dragon smart, but he didn't have enough room to really do what he needed to do. Yeah. And he did hit him with that initial breath weapon attack, and once he did, they spread their asses out and they tried to get around him. Yeah, so I was like, smart. Yeah. But anyway, even in that adventure, it's like the dragon's away. You're going into his lair. Well, in the back of your mind, if you're a savvy player, you're going, that dragon's going to show back up while we're in the lair. You know
is that
it
the one
is.
Where it's on a timer? Okay.
Yeah. So, which is a pretty good adventure. Like I said, some of those Adventures League adventures were pretty good, but that's one where you had to keep up with the time frame. Like if the players take a lot of long rests, he's going to be in his lair when you get there, you know. And on the other hand, if you screw around just enough, he shows up while you're in there. But then it's like, if you just do everything perfect and you really bide your time and don't delay and take the right, there's like 2 different routes, one slower or something, the faster route, you can get in and get the treasure and be going away. But again, you're laden with the treasure, and he gets to his lair, sees it's been looted, and he catches you out in the wilds. Technically, you're better off in his lair, as it turns out, than out in the open, because like you said, here, let me fly down and melt you without even landing, you know. But anyway, but he does have his lair powers and all that stuff. So anyway. But yeah.
So your topic is put some respect on that dragon's name.
Yeah, that would be it. I mean, first I just led in with just some general lore about dragons, and it's interesting that Gygax and our old buddy Rob Kuntz, you know, chose the names for them from Arabic and Mesopotamian mythology, you know, for their good and bad deities. Now, who were their counterparts in Dragonlance?
You're talking about Behemoth and
Tiamat?
And I guess that's Behemoth is Paladine, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Tiamat is
Takesis or whatever.
Yeah. Just like those chips.
Yeah, Takis. But then people will debate, well, that's not really meant to be Tiamat and Bahamut. And I'm like, well, who are they supposed to be? But I mean, you'd got to figure if you're going to have the Dragonlance, you'd hope you'd have the penultimate evil and good dragons, but they came up with different personifications or whatever.
Yeah, kind of like aspects of them.
Yeah. But anyway, But yeah, like that's kind of my thing. The takeaway is, give the dragons their due. They're kind of supposed to be the penultimate bad guy. You can even talk about what's the big god awful thing that's as big as a city in D&D, the
Tarask.
Yeah, Tarask or something. And some people quiver, but no, I would think an elder dragon played properly isn't a bigger threat even than the.
Because a Tarask isn't intelligent, is it?
No, it's just a big eustachian tube. It's eats craps. Yeah, but honestly, it's landborn or whatever. A dragon can fly. It can cast spells. I mean, so like I said, properly played, that elder dragon is the bigger threat. Again, this is called. It's not Dungeons and Tarasks or whatever. So you give them their due, play them right, and don't play them sparingly. Whatever I would think. But anyway. That was kind of my thought.
So you can make it dungeons and demigods.
There you go.
Tunnels and trolls.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah.
So here's my topic.
Okay.
For dragons.
Yes.
What's your favorite style of dragon? Do you prefer the Eastern dragons or the Western style looking dragons with the wings?
The wingaling dragons.
Okay. Did you know the Chinese dragons are the ones that have beards? That's how, like the Chinese and the Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the biggest differences.
And then
the number of claws.
The Japanese got that from the Chinese, by the way. Yeah, you knew that. And there's a numbering of claws or something.
Mm-hmm. It's like I think the Japanese dragons will always have 3 claws.
Interesting.
And then a Chinese will have like 4 or 5, something like that.
Didn't know that.
Okay, how about the best song mentioning dragons?
Puff the Magic Dragon.
Okay, take that Geritol shot. But mine is probably as old, with the Battle of Evermore, with the flames from the Dragon of Darkness, which is always a cool line.
Absolutely. A lot of great lines.
All right, I guess I will be able to guess your opinion on this one. The best dragon world setting. So you've got Council of Worms, Dragonlance, Dark Sun, and if there's anything else that you want to throw in there that's kind of got a heavy dragon presence.
Well, they're the Dragon Kings, aren't they, in Dark Suns? That's a world
Basically, they're
setting.
turning into dragons.
Yeah. I always wanted to play in. I was always fascinated with it. I bought the box set, but it's like my luck through the years. Back then I had, like I said, people, again, take for granted, you can fall over backwards and find someone who wants to play D&D. Back in the day, I remember buying that box set for Dark Suns. Like, anybody want to play? No, I don't want to play. It sounds weird. Let's just play some regular D&D. It's like, so I never get anybody to play it. I love the idea and the concepts. I like that you have to use magic sparingly, because with every spell you're destroying the land, So yeah,
I love the getting to play a Treekin in that.
Yep.
So I got a soft spot in my heart for them.
Yep. I like the insectoids or whatever. They're cool. I like that a lot of times early on you're fighting with bone weapons. So if you get a steel weapon, like, ooh, I'm sexy. Look at me. I got a steel weapon. People are fighting. And I love that halflings are feral in that. And I think the elves, instead of having their forest, remember the planet's been deforested and jacked up. Like, the elves have got shaved heads and tattoos, and that's before that was a popular concept. And they were swarthy because they had been tanned by the sun out in the desert or something. So it was really interesting. They had the moles, which are like half giants. A lot of that kind of crazy stuff is not that rare in some game settings, but a lot of that stuff was ahead of its time. And I think it was a really neat. I'd love to play in that.
You got to start at 3rd level
because it was such a dangerous world. Absolutely, yeah. No, it was neat. No, I'd probably.
So you haven't got to play any Dark Suns, is what you're saying?
Never in my life.
Did you ever play Council of Worms? Do you even remember that set?
I do remember Council of Worms, and we've even referenced it, I think, a few times on the cast when we went deep into some of that, when they were making way too many game settings and overdoing it. That was in that era when you had Birthright and Dark Suns and Council of Worms and all that crap. Mystara, Spelljammer. Yeah, it's like kind of overdid it. But no, I never really knew what it was about.
Dragon politics.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I think that's kind of where Dragonborns were, but you were actually more dragon. I don't know. How does Dragonborn even fit into it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I know that they introduced them in 4th edition, and when they did, they talked about, originally they were like thralls of dragons or something, but they somehow broke free and gained their independence and blah 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 or something.
So, have you played any Dragonlance? Have you actually played any Dragonlance?
Back in the day when it was hot shit, when the books were out and people were reading them and loving them, they had modules,
Right.
and I played a few of those and ran a few of those. Absolutely.
Okay, so I have played more Dark Sun, which I have not played a lot, than I have of Dragonlance.
Interesting.
Of those, I think I've played Dragonlance the least, even though I read those books and I was really into it. It just didn't come up. And then I don't know how those played that well because you're kind of trying to follow the arc of what they did in a novel. So it's like it's got to be a certain amount of railroady.
Yeah.
And then I think if you've read the books, you want to try and do
Spoilers.
everything the same.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is the part where he casts Fireball and saves the day. I'll cast Fireball.
Or he charms the little, what'd you call those little
Gully Dwarves.
gully dwarves or something, and that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
So of those three, which one would be your favorite, or which one would you want to play the most? Dark Sun?
I'd love to kick the tires on Dark Suns.
Yeah, I'd like to play it too, but I'd like to do some stuff in the Dragonlance world. And I was going to say, we've mentioned Bill Barsh a couple times. Remember, he was doing a Dragon World-esque setting way back, so many years ago, because we played in it. Remember
that's
when?
right. Yeah.
That was, I don't know, we had maybe 10 players on that table or something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was when we were on our phones ripping on the guys other end of the table, right?
Yeah, we were, it was way too big of a table. So we were pretty much down there, and it's like, what do you guys do? Look around. Okay, so, because the people at the head of the table closer to Bill were just running it. We were just extra to surplus, or whatever you want to say. Okay, so Dragonlance, Dark Suns. There we go.
Yeah.
What is your favorite or bestest dragon art? Like, if you have to go pick one of those, Elmore, Easley, Caldwell, does anything spring to mind? Or the cover of, or the old classic one where he's fighting the dragon and holding the shield,
Well, I
or
tell
the
you,
Dragon's Crag, or
so many great art. Because while you're talking about that, the image popped into that. The one evil cleric who's like the bad guy mastermind of the dragon cult in Dragonlance. There's that one where he's standing there with his finger pointing at you. I can see the artwork, and there's a red dragon kind of curled around him, behind him. Beautiful classic dragon. And there's the guy who did the best dragons. I think he did that art. But at the same time, in that same series, it seems like, and you've seen this image before, there's that one old withered, desiccated looking elf with his hand on an orb and that green dragon over his shoulder. That's some of the coolest artwork.
So there we go. I have said me and Matt are on the same wavelength.
On a lot of things, yeah.
Dragonlance had some of the best dragon art, and that one's right here. The Dragons of Dream with the green dragon, Cyan Bloodbane, where he's warping the Elf King's mind with that dragon orb. So that was one of the first ones that came into my mind, too.
It's just so iconic, so gorgeous.
And that's not even like, oh, it's a huge beauty shot of the dragon.
No.
The dragon's just in there, kind of like a Grimer worm tongue or something.
whispering into the Elf King's ear.
And it shows you the other kind of power of a dragon.
Oh, yeah. Well, I love how the orbs are supposed to control the dragon, but somehow the dragon uses it to subvert and instead control him.
Because he's whispering into the Elf King's mind to make him do.
Yeah.
So the other one I had was Lorana chained up in front of Tiamat. If you remember that one, she's kind of doing that pose, and then Tiamat's behind her going off.
Iconic. Yeah, I want that on a T-shirt.
Yep. So with Tiamat, you get to enjoy all of the dragons, and I love our Tiamat-esque long con shirt.
Absolutely.
But
wore it this weekend. Got a lot of, hey man, cool shirt.
I have to say I prefer it to the Lich.
Yeah.
Okay. Not in general, but just that particular T-shirt. But both of those pieces of art, the Dragons of Dreams, or Dragons of Triumph, those are both by. You got any guesses?
Easley?
Nope.
I mean, guy from Kentucky, or is that Easley?
You're gonna have to be more specific, sir.
So
it's one of the big three.
Yeah, right. You've got Caldwell, Easley, Parkinson, Elmore.
That's the big four. Nope.
Easley, Elmore, Parkinson, Caldwell. Those are the four guys.
Yeah. So you gave me the two E's, and you are incorrect. And I didn't know it either. No, you guessed them all.
Caldwell.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because you think of him as the old thigh master.
Yeah, I was going to say, did this dragon have a big juicy thigh?
Which I love his art. I especially
too,
love that one of like Strahd carrying the busty girl. But I mean, that's so evocative. It's that sets that setting. It locks it in. It paints the picture right there.
Yeah.
But where it's got Lorana chained up a little bit, she's got the more of the leggings things going on, but that's such a small picture in the grand scheme. It's kind of like, well, I couldn't resist it, but that's not too salacious a picture, I wouldn't say.
Salacious. What a great word.
But yeah, those are some of my favorites, and yours too, and both by Caldwell. So give the man his props.
No,
the other guys are
artist.
fantastic, but that's where I was surprised myself that it was like both of those are by him. Okay, favorite book dragon. I'll make it easy. Give you a minute here and say Schmaug.
Oh yeah.
He's so good.
Yeah.
And that's probably the first one that I really got into and was exposed to. So that's
because that was at the book fair when I was in middle school, was The Hobbit, you know, and you were like, ooh, because Smaug, you know, I know you're here, thief, you know, and oh, you're almost like hunkering down in bed reading the book.
It's so scary.
Yeah. So good one.
You got another one, or you want to go with that?
No, I can't beat that one.
Okay. What is your favorite chromatic dragon?
Chromatic, the black dragon.
Favorite chromatic for me, blue.
Interesting.
But I love that lightning breath too.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
Metallic.
Probably gold.
Oh, no,
Gold.
sorry, wrong. Silver.
Silver. Silver and gold.
And
silver.
what kind of breath does the silver have? Do you remember that one?
Oh, is that cold?
Yep.
Yeah.
Or paralyzing.
Or paralyzed?
It has the options.
Yeah.
Gold or standard fire, right?
Yeah.
If you ask me all of the chromatic dragons' breath weapons, I could tell you. If you ask me all the metallics, I'd probably mess it up.
Yeah.
But that's because you're not studying that in the monster manual.
Well, and that's because you don't fight
run
the
across
good dragons that often. Why would you fight a goodly dragon?
And how often do you even run across them usually?
Yeah. That's why I love one of my most infamous yet / kind of favorite Bandit Kingdoms adventures was the one where everyone got mind controlled but my bard, and the wizard was like, I'm going to kill you, tee-hee. And I remember early in the adventure, we'd ran past an ancient brass dragon, and I went, oh, and I just ran back past the ancient brass dragon, and it killed the wizard for me, you know. So anyway, I was like, yay for brass dragons.
All right. Gem dragons.
The amethyst dragon.
Amethyst.
Amethyst.
What kind of breath weapon is that?
No clue.
I just made that up.
It was like
The topaz.
yeah, no, but there's an amethyst dragon.
Yeah. I'll give it
And
to
I
you.
think it's got like dream breath or some silly crap like that.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
I'll go with obsidian,
Ooh, nice. There you go.
which just has tasteful fire breath again.
Ah, there we go.
Nothing too terribly sexy about that.
Yeah.
But and gem dragons in general, I don't know when they came into the mix.
Yeah, well, I mean, the 80s, because that's when it was just like, well, the wells run dry. We'll come up with some other crazy shit or whatever. More dragons. We need more dragons. Like as if, you know, dragons don't have mystique enough, you know, whatever.
Yeah. And for those of you that are still listening along, you can tell us your favorites at
Exactly.
No Class RPG Podcast
At gmail.com.
.org.mil.
That's right. Please let us know. What was the previous question earlier? What their opinion was on something. I can't remember now.
How would you cook a dwarf?
How would you cook a dwarf? Yeah.
How would you use a dragon, or should you fight? Should you fight dragons that much? Should they be all over the place, or should they be these rare, mysterious figures?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how about a lesser known type of dragon to get away from the chromatics and metallics and gems? Is there anything else?
Well, we talked about like a Dracolich, and that's kind of interesting, you know, when you get into the undead aspect. And I think there's even been like mechanical dragons, but that's really more of a clockwork, you know, kind of thing or something. But there's been every kind of.
How about a shadow dragon?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Those made of dark evil. They're more casterish.
Yeah.
They have life and stat draining breath.
Oh, wow.
How would you like that one?
Ouch.
And those would be a perfect fit in Ravenloft for people like me.
Yes, indeed.
As a matter of fact, you wouldn't really think there are a lot of dragons in Ravenloft.
Right.
But in the Night of the Black Rose, Strahd has an ancient red dragon working for him. So you could put some respect on his name, too.
Yeah, think about that. If this man can make a dragon do his bidding, that guy's a pimp, you know.
Okay, Favorite movie dragon? Are we going to get
Geez, that's a tough one.
Dragon's
we,
Lair?
we just talked about, the old vermithrax, pejorative or whatever.
I'd have to watch it again, but I might go with just the general amount that you get in Rain of Fire.
Well, it's funny was they took some of the same models and effects because it wasn't that many years later necessarily, but yeah, they took some of the things they had done and learned in that movie and did that in Rain of Fire. Because again, you look nowadays, we're going to have a dragon movie, they just do CGI. Snip, snap, you're done. Back then, you had to use all this mechanics and go motion and all this kind of stuff to emulate it and try to make it look real. I think there's something that's been lost. There was a real art there, But yeah, Rain of Fire.
But that's where you get post-apocalyptic dragons.
Yeah.
And they're all over the place.
And Matthew McConaughey was great in that movie. And that was one of his first roles, or earlier ones.
Doubt.
Earlier.
Express doubt. Yeah. Earlier than now.
Well, no,
That's
but
not something he did today. Was he
Yeah.
eating some Pizza King pizza when he made it?
he was actually. Yeah, with
Gross.
some roasted dwarf on it.
Okay. Any other pop culture dragons that are worth mentioning here? You already got Puff the Magic Dragon.
That's right.
Lives
You
by
know
the
it.
sea.
Yeah, does he? Yeah,
Pete's Dragon.
that's right. Gosh, I don't know. Yeah. Can't think of any.
All right. Well, I can tell by the clock on the wall that we did not pull this old dungeon. But we're all out of hit points.
How'd you